And we're back in the building. I don't know why I'm doing this still, but I mean, it's been helping me out, I guess, while studying. And I guess helping me learn it is just trying to teach it on to others in a weird sort of sense so that it helps me better remember this for, the big test coming up. Um, so yeah, I mean, I don't have a Dr. Pepper this time, unfortunately, even though I really want one. I have water. Try to be a little bit better today. Have a nice bottle of water here. Um, so the last time we talked about this was we mostly broke down the very raw basics of tax, like defining tax and where it mostly comes from and stuff like that, and how to identify if a system of tax and stuff is working for a country and or, smaller like, counties and things like that. Um, which is what we mostly identified. There has been not much that has changed from the new chapter from what I've seen, but we did jump from chapter 1 to chapter 15 per our guidelines. Yeah, I genuinely don't know why schools prefer to jump around. If you're gonna have text and you're not gonna use all of it, why have text? And I know some books are made to just have a bunch of filler in it, but when it comes to education, it needs to be straight to the point sometimes. I mean, you could do a lot of fluff work, but these days, not many people need the fluff. If it's not the main facts, nobody's paying attention. Once again, I probably have Star Stable on in the background, which I think I'm training McDonald. Yeah, probably. Or not McDonald. McDouble. Yes, I have a horse named McDouble now. My new Shire. Love him. It's funny because, I bought McDouble and I asked a friend, I'm just like, McNugget or McDouble? And I guess because it's a Shire, we immediately just jumped on the McDouble, which, so happy. He looks just as brain dead as me, which, yeah, checks out. But anyway, to kind of jump into it, it's kind of funny because we're going to be going into corporations later on, and one of the main corporations that is everybody's, thought for a fast food one is usually McDonald's. So it's very ironic that we're training McDouble. Anyway, um, so before we go into that, the whole corporation side of things, we have to do a little bit of research when it comes to taxes. I mean, when beginning tax research, facts always come first. Facts can be open, meaning a proposed situation for a future where you want to know the tax implications is important, but most of the time you kind of want to stick to closed, which is a situation that's already occurred and you know it's a tax treatment. So you already have a solution. It's closed, therefore it's got a solution already. Open, meaning it's a situation where it hasn't quite happened yet, but you want to know the implications for it. I prefer to have closed. It's just easier of seeing from start to finish how it's going to be treated, whereas open kind of leaves it up in the air, if that makes sense. Um, Whenever you're seeking case law statuses and stuff like that, you can use, the basics to argue your legal point in court if you have any situations where you're bringing a tax situation to court. Um, but there is steps for that, so it's not crazy steps. It's just first you have to understand the facts, which we just previously talked about, be open or closed, identify issues for that tax. So if you're able to point something out, you're able to list it and give backup for it, you can identify it. Locating the relevant authorities, which is basically going to the right person relating to this tax issue. Um, and we'll kind of, we'll go into like different sources of tax law, so that's gonna help you locate your relevant authorities for it. There's also analyzing the tax authorities themselves, because if you go into a court, you kind of want to have the court favor you. You want to have, give you, what's the word I'm looking for? give you the kind of underdog hurrah, you know. You don't want somebody that's going to look down on you and continue to look down on you. So you analyze the tax authority that you are going to present yourself to. And of course, with everything, it's important to finally document and communicate the results. So whatever comes of this situation, it's very, very, very important to have it documented and have that communicated out as much as possible. Because this is a solution, therefore it would be closed, and that situation has happened, and people who may come to court will already have a sort of resolution of what needs to be done for the tax treatment, if that makes sense. So, without further ado, there are two sources of tax law. There's the primary, and then there's the secondary. Primary sources are the official sources of tax law, such as those that are like the legislative branch and the Internal Revenue Code, which you could find under like Title 26 of the USC. That's one of them. There's also judicial branch rulings by the federal courts and executive and administrative actions from the Treasury regulations and the IRS pronouncement. IRS sounds familiar. If you don't know what that is, it's the Internal Revenue Services. Just saying, those are the people that you go to for your taxes yearly and stuff like that. It's those guys. If you don't know, if you do know, then you know. Secondary sources are mostly the unofficial tax authorities that explain the primary authorities, such as tax journals and guidebooks. So your documents that would explain your primary sources. Sources of tax law can very much include the U.S. Constitution, 16th Amendment, Internal Revenue Code of 1986, the Legislative Internal Revenue Code itself, and the Administrative Treasury Regulations, and finally the Executive Tax Treaties. All of these can include tax law. So you can very much pull any information from these for your situation and apply them to yourself. It kind of seems redundant because the US Constitution is so, it's been around since eons and stuff. You may not think it applies to you, but, this is where we have multiple sources and stuff that, do help. There's also the judicial, I can't even say it, the court decisions, which come from the Supreme Court itself, along with the U.S. District Court of Appeals and trial courts. So, simple court solutions and stuff like that, which have closed situations with tax treatments and stuff that could very much apply to you if you do the research. Once again, you have to go back to the start where you understand the facts and identify the issue. Then you go ahead and, locate, analyze, and document. So, yeah, I am going to be ringing that bell a little bit because it's very important. There are lesser administrative authorities that can come from regulations, revenue rulings, and revenue procedures that do not always apply to, all states, counties, or districts. This could very much be different. However, there is usually revenue rulings that offer more detailed interpretations of the code revenue procedures, which explains the IRS practices. These kind of go into more so the administrating tax law in great detail, so it is a lot of bookwork there. If you really have a case here that you need to follow in on, then I would recommend that. It's not always guaranteed you're gonna find your answer there because it is very much in great detail. There's no over exaggerating in there. It is quite literally from start to finish, which is pretty great if you're wanting to really look into it. There's also a private letter ruling, which individual taxpayers ask the IRS how they will be taxed on an issue, which you can have that, done individually without having to go through, a tax person themselves or just any tax person you may be going through. So if you're using like TurboTax, you can ask them a question, they could deliver your question, or if you have a tax person, you can ask them that question, they might have the answer. If not, you could literally go to the IRS and ask. It's gonna take some time, but you can do that. The IRS makes a determination on a specific taxpayer only. It will only be applied to you as an individual, hence why it's a private letter ruling. It will not be applied everywhere else. It is specific to you. The IRS will not rule on proposed federal tax legislations. So, like I said, individual, private, only you. A technical advice is requested by an IRS agent during audit, typically, and is determined to how to treat a taxpayer's issues. So you most likely will be audited. Have you had a private ruling just to determine the correct approach for it and have a proper tax treatment applied? That's how that is. And like I said, I could be wrong about any of this. I am still learning it myself. If you feel like there is something else, please comment it, because I'm still learning. I'm no expert. Do not take my word as law. I am only studying. And yeah. But here comes the fun part of where we now talk about organizations, you know, partnerships, companies, corporations, you name it. This is this part now. Typically, an entity is an organization created by one or more individuals to conduct business, engage in trade, or partake in similar activities. Business entities can be classified as a flow-through entity or a separate tax-paying entity themselves. Most flow-through entities pass through the money made by an entity through a taxpayer, who then, turns around and pays on their individual 1040s. So anytime you received your 1040 form, that is you're being a flow through. It's gone through the corporation already, it's now coming to you, they've done most of the work, it is now in your hands. Flow through entities include partnerships and S corporations. Like I said, they have gone through somebody and is now in your hands. Flow through, they don't handle it themselves, it goes to you, pass through a corporation typically. There's also a separate tax-paying entity. It's treated like a living person and pays taxes on the money it makes. So think of your C corporations. They are separate tax-paying entities and they're very much subject to double taxation. There is your sole proprietorship, which is a type of enterprise owned and operated by one person without distinction between the owner and the business entity. Think of, your mom and pop places or very small businesses that, you have in your town. Then you have your general partnership, which is, an associated between two or more individuals that pool money, skills, and other resources to share profit and loss in accordance with the terms of the operating agreement. So I don't know if any of you have seen this movie, but there's a movie out on Netflix called The Founder, which, if you've seen that movie, that's great because it kind of explains the situation a little bit better for general partnership. There's two people that originally started McDonald's and stuff like that. It is a guy, named Donald. I don't know if I think it is McDonald. His name is McDonald. And his partner, which I believe is his brother, I not remember his name right now, but I have like an image on the screen showing these two people in the movie and stuff like that. They have a general partnership that run their little, McDonald's shop and stuff like that. The original McDonald's, not the retail one. The original food one, because that's where it started. It started with the food first, and then someone went and took it and made it sort of more of a retail company where they lease the land and the franchisee is actually paying them back for the land, not the restaurant chain. I found it interesting, at least. There's also the limited partnership, which is a business that has one general partner and one or more limited partners. So you have your main guy, and then they have the two partners that are very limited, meaning they don't have the full, benefits of full profit, but they also don't have, the risk of having that full loss. They are limited partners. They won't suffer if you suffer, but they won't gain as much if you gain. They can share money, skills, and stuff like that, but they won't face the full profit and the full loss, depending on their operating agreement. They're more limited. You are the main person, and you have these two side people, if there's two. That's just kind of an example. It can typically be just one person and another person, one being the main person, and then the other being a limited partner. Then it kind of goes into things like the limited liability company, which is an LLC. This is kind of an association that is a hybrid between partnership and corporation, because it offers the limited liability of corporation and it also offers tax advantages of a partnership. So you're keeping the tax benefits and advantages of a partnership, but you kind of are like leaning into the corporation portion just a little bit. It kind of gives you limited liability, which is why it's called an LLC and stuff like that. You're not fully a corporation, but you're not a partnership. You're in between. Think of, hey, I don't want to be classed as a corporation yet, but I want the benefits of a partnership. That's where you would be. You would be an LLC, right between those two brackets. Um, what's next? Oh yeah, the corporation. So we have two. We have S corporation, which is S corp, and then C corporation, which is C corp. S corporation is a corporation built to avoid income tax at a corporate level while also retaining the advantage of a limited liability. This is your retail stores, your car dealerships, your banks, and your movie theaters. All there. That's what it would be. They don't want to be fully at that C Corp level. They just want to be identified as a corporation. So they will, avoid that. I don't think they avoid the double taxation. I have to, kind of look into that. Actually, can it? I'm just gonna Google it real quick. S Corp's double taxation. It avoids double taxation. I thought so. I just wanted to confirm that before yappering. So, S corporation avoids that double taxation completely. They fall under it to where they don't get taxed at that corporate level. They are underneath it. So, C corporation is a separate legal and tax entity entirely. It's created by individuals, aka shareholders, who contribute money, property, or both corporation stock. Therefore, they will be double taxed as they are classed under it. These are a separate entity. This is them. This is the big guys. They will be double taxed. They face double taxation guaranteed. These are usually the I can name you a few. Think of Apple, Amazon, Ford. There's also Microsoft. McDonald's now. McDonald's before wasn't, but McDonald's now is. Then you have your Starbucks and things like Walmart. These are your mass C corporations. These are the big guys. These guys will get double taxed because they do not split off. These are your mass tax entities. And I know that was kind of a lot of talking for this episode. I wouldn't even call it an episode, just kind of a yap session, I'm gonna be real. But, yes, I know this was kind of like an ongoing tangent of the introducing on how you can identify sources of tax law and understanding, organizations a little bit better, I hope. But, I mean, that's all I really have for this one. There's not much to it. Chapter 15 was relatively short for me, so, I mean, that's why this is a little shorter. Well, it might be a little longer in the sense because I had to keep making cuts, but, editing me has that as their future problem. But yeah, if you like these, I guess, just comment or like. If you find any of this interesting, that's great. I just kind of do it for myself at this point, for me trying to enforce what I currently know so that when I go and take the test, I'm just not like staring at the questions like, hello? What are you? I've never heard of you. But, this kind of enforces my memory just a little better. And I do hope the knowledge that I've learned at least goes on to somebody else. There will be another one of these. I'm actually already plotting another one of these. Ironically, I was cutting through quite a few chapters because some of these are really short and very simple, but I'm kind of like bulking up between a couple of chapters just because of how short they are, and it wouldn't make sense to make a whole dedicated video for like 3 chapters that are just 5 sentences. Or the main points of them, at least. So, yes. Next time, it will definitely probably be more towards the tax rate breakdowns and stuff like that, where we talk about the, adjusted gross income and things like that, or AGIs, or just in general individuals who file for taxes, how they can find their own formula for it, which it's gonna be a little math breakdown of it, but not completely. It's not what you think. It's more so defining those terms within the formula itself and identifying what bracket falls under where. So yeah, hope you enjoyed, and you will see me again. Boy, boy.